Welcome to the fourth and final session in unpacking the memorable historic speech of Rahul Gandhi's in the Parliament. And in this session, I'll also bring in Sri Narendra Modi's speech and say something by way of comparison so that we are able to arrive at a more comprehensive and adequate idea of where we are. But as a preface, let me say this, that I've always found it very worthwhile to use contemporary events and situations as learning experiences. I have to say that my interest is academic, not political. I'm not a political commentator. I'm not the spokesperson of a party. I don't represent any ideology. I don't even represent the partisan interests of a religion. I consider all of these to be incompatible with my personal dignity, which is safeguarded only by my fierce sense of freedom and my unwavering commitment to truth, which is, I consider, the substratum of the humanity that we share and cherish. Now, what is the main contrast in the two approaches of the two foremost political personages in India at the present time? It's very clear now. It is Rahul versus Modi or Modi versus Rahul. It was not Rahul who created this contrast or this binary. It was the Sangh Parivar, it was the BJP, and therefore it has come to stay. And what was envisaged to be a comparison to the infinite advantage of Modi and disadvantage of Rahul has now acquired a certain degree of equivalence. So one is not inferior to the other, one is not superior to the other. Both have their strengths, their merits, but now everything depends on how a person uses his strength or his weakness. History will judge you not merely in terms of what strengths you possess, but to what purpose you deployed them or used them. And that is where I think both of them will have to pay a lot of attention. All right. So what is the most significant contrast between them in terms of the two speeches that we are considering? I've already done a unit on Modi's speech. It was posted yesterday. Now, to me, the main point of departure is as follows. While Rahul Gandhi confines himself largely to themes, patterns, principles, etc., also issues pertaining to the Sangh Parivar ideology, with a heavy accent on how Hinduism is being misused and abused in the process, Sri Narendra Damodar Das Modi was more personal in his attack. So, ideas versus the personal attack based on ideas and ideology on the one hand, and personal attack on the other. Now, whether you like it or not, I have to say this to you, that the rhetorical grandstanding based on ideas and ideology is certainly more mature than personal attacks. See, if you think of your school days, when you are in elementary school, you would recall two students fighting between themselves, and they will attack each other personally. They will not attack each other in terms of ideas or ideologies or philosophies or values, nothing of the sort. They'll attack each other personally. And we are supposed to outgrow that infantile stage. Ideas must be counterpointed with ideas. Ideologies must be fought ideologically. Strategies must be countered with appropriate counter strategies. Culture must be counterpointed with counterculture. Personal attack is not the solution. Unfortunately, Sri Narendra Damodar Das Modi ji has become so used to, it has become second nature to him to attack personally. And it was this that unfortunately misled the Sangh Parivar, the BJP, and including the Prime Minister, into vilifying Sri Rahul Gandhi without paying any heed to his personal merit or demerit as Papu. It was a personal attack. Rahul Gandhi was not being attacked on the basis of his Congress ideology. He was not being attacked on the basis of his religion or lack of it, on the basis of his ideas or his poverty in ideas, on the basis of his maturity or immaturity as a politician. He was simply caricatured as Papu, which is a cheap, third-rate political detraction of an opponent, based not even on personal traits or truth about a person, based on a prejudicial notion about that person, quite unmindful of what he was really capable of, what he was like. You arbitrarily stick a label on somebody and then go on repeating it 1,000 times, assuming that that label will stick, and therefore for the rest of his life, the person will be known only in terms of the label you have stuck on him. The unfairness and the aggression of it is far too much. And sooner or later, the people of India was bound to see through it, and it's bad news to the Sangh Parivar camp and the BJP camp that the people of India from one end to the other, particularly in the state of Uttar Pradesh, and that's the most significant thing, have seen through the utter unjustifiability, the utter, shall we say, infantility of this exercise. And therefore, it will no longer work to pursue the same approach, to attack Rahul Gandhi in terms of his person, and not in terms of the truth of his person, but in terms of some kind of an idea that you arbitrarily generate, the labels that you manufacture and stick on him, and then keep on calling him by that label. The people have rejected this approach lock, stock and barrel, and it's high time that the BJP realized it, but unfortunately there is no indication as yet that they are willing to do so. And the Prime Minister's speech countering Rahul Gandhi, unfortunately, was very disappointing in this one respect, even though I continue to respect his rhetorical skills, his power as an orator, so on and so forth. In terms of his approach to Rahul Gandhi, I think he is getting fixated, obsessed. And the problem with fixation is that it prevents you from changing your position, it prevents you from taking into account unfolding realities and therefore becoming the better for the experiences that you have. Now this doesn't augur well at all. And if this is the attitude that the BJP as a party and the NDA as a coalition of parties want to adopt, I'm afraid this is bad news for India, not just for them, bad news for, because what it proves is a resolute refusal to learn from experience and the tendency to get stuck somewhere in the past at a position where one arbitrarily chose it for oneself. And this is not a sign of maturity at all, no matter how I'm attacked and vilified, how provocative these words of mine may seem to the camp followers of the Sangh Parivar. I have to say this as a teacher, as a neutral third-party person who is interested only in the well-being of the people and the welfare of my country. This doesn't augur well at all, either for the party or for the country. Now, I remember Atal Bihari Vajpayee saying, and that there's something beautiful. In fact, I cherish many of his statements. He always said, the answer to a book is a book. The answer to an idea is an idea, not attack. You cannot attack an idea. If you think you can attack and kill an idea, you are a fool of history. This is not what I am saying. This is what Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, one of the most respectable leaders of our political history, belonging to the same camp, said. Counter an idea with an idea, a book with a book, an argument with a counter argument. Now, sociologically speaking, when you cannot counter an idea with a corresponding idea, a better idea, all you can do is to degenerate into violence either verbal violence or physical violence. Now, verbal violence is amply manifested in the ready tendency to vilify a person by sticking inappropriate labels on him and then persuading yourself to believe that that person is no more than the label you have arbitrarily manufactured and stuck on him. This indicates a very high degree of self-delusion. It will not help any party at all. And I expect Narendra Modi ji to have greater understanding, greater intelligence than this. And I'm sure that he will discard this approach. And especially now that Shri Rahul Gandhi is the accredited leader of the opposition, to go on saying that he's infantile and everything he says is infantile and that he is the same old papu, you don't dare to use that word anymore, but in all kinds of indirect ways you say that he's still that old papu. I think this will not do at all. This will not do at all. So, the main contrast is this. While Rahul Gandhi confined himself largely to the presentation of themes and patterns, of course he did attack. For example, he attacked the abuse of religion. He attacked the tendency to use violence as a problem-solving method. He attacked the tendency to use falsehood in misleading the electorate into voting for a particular party. All of that he did. But those are not just, they're not personal attacks. He's not vilifying anyone in person. He's only denouncing an unjustifiable, unhealthy practice or a pattern. And it is very legitimate in a free constitutional democracy to do so. And the way to counter that is to bring in arguments relating to each of the points that he made on the basis of facts, of ideologies, or philosophies, if you like, or doctrines, and then argue it out. Unfortunately, that was not done. And my point is, so long as his adversaries remain stuck in that infantile state of countering a man's argument only by vilifying him through personal attacks, calling him or a papu or a kipu, whatever, they will never be able to develop the intellectual resources to counter him ideologically and in terms of ideas. And therefore, from now onwards, if their approach does not change, every public debate between Rahul Gandhi and Narendra Modi will be, mark my words, will be to Rahul Gandhi's advantage. See, Narendra Modi will lose out unless he changes his approach. Because after a while, this will get on the nerves of the people. You go on calling somebody a papu or a mentally retarded person or an infantile bal bhutti or infantile bhutti and all the rest of it. No one wants to hear this sort of thing. Your camp followers, your sycophants, your opportunists will clap for you. Not because they are convinced, but because they think politically it is profitable for them to do so. If a person has no self-respect, no commitment to truth, he will certainly applaud all these infantile approaches and strategies. I say this out of love and respect for Modi ji, whom I had the opportunity to meet at least 3 times. I hope he remembers these things. I have nothing against him. I wish him well. I sincerely wish him well, because after all, he's my Prime Minister. He's my Prime Minister. Which person believing in a modern democracy wants his Prime Minister to be a person of less stature than the country deserves? So I say this out of a healthy, respectful concern for him. So this is one issue. The second issue, and I'll close on that. I think the main concern that Shri Rahul Gandhi harped on or focused on is the abuse of religion. The abuse of religion. And he went to the extent of saying that Hinduism is in a state of peril. Now, we had, for example, a few years ago, 4 senior judges of the Supreme Court of India come out in the open, conduct an unprecedented press conference saying that democracy is in peril in India. That was again pertaining to the same government. It was not being stated by some political adversaries or what have you. stated by the 4 senior most Supreme Court judges of India. Now, I have nothing to say about it, whether they were right or wrong, etc. And what they did thereafter, it's a matter of their own conscience. I have nothing to say about it. But Rahul Gandhi's main cry is not that democracy is in danger. In fact, he says that we are capable of taking care of the democracy in India, and we'll do that. The India bloc is duty bound to do that, and we will not allow the democracy of India to be deformed into a de facto dictatorship. That's not our problem. Don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. But we are deeply worried about how religion is abused in the process. Because the problem is, when religion is brought into political situations, what it does is that religion has always the tendency to paralyze your thinking process. Because from day number 1 of your life, if you are religiously trained or religiously conditioned, you are trained not to think. You are required to have blind faith. So the reason why politicians invoke religion and position themselves as a champion of this religion or that religion is that it gives them a carte blanche, a blank check to do what they want. Position yourself as the savior of a religion, then you can do whatever you want. Any irrationality, any injustice, any oppression, any inhuman activity, the people will stand solidly with you because they think of you as the savior of their religion. The masses that are thus communally charged will not have the ability or even the freedom to ask the question whether your religion or your God really needs protection from a human being or a party. They will not have the presence of mind to realize that the very idea that their God or their religion needs political patronage and support of petty politicians, is an insult to their religion, insult to their God. If God is God, then he or she should be able to take care of himself or herself. A God who needs the support and the shield of a politician's power, might or sword is a very pathetic creature indeed. So Rahul Gandhi says that the core light of Hindu spiritual vision is ahimsa, is commitment to truth. And this is what I have seen in every book I have read on Hinduism, that Hinduism understands God, the idea of God in terms of truth. Now, Gandhi was deeply influenced by this. God is truth. Christianity says that God is love. Buddha identified the divine. Buddha did not have a concept of God, but let's say the divine with compassion. Islam identifies God with justice. Hinduism identifies God with truth. God is truth. That's why we have the national motto, Satyameva Jayate Nanardham. That's the reason why Rahul Gandhi stated emphatically that if you are a Hindu, you are duty bound to believe in and practice truth. You can't practice untruth in the service of Hinduism and assume that you are doing a great service to Hinduism because under the very pretext of promoting or protecting Hinduism, you are actually raping its soul. That's his argument. Of course, he didn't use this word, but this is actually what he meant. He put it as strongly as that. That's why I'm using that metaphor. And I think it's a very valid point. Now, for example, take the symbolism of the Trishul. The corresponding symbol in Christianity is the cross. If Rahul Gandhi is correct in interpreting the Trishul of Lord Shiva as a symbol of non-violence, equally true is it of the cross of Jesus Christ, because the cross is a result of the most absolute rejection of violence. When Jesus was set upon by the soldiers to be arrested, tried and killed, Peter tried to defend him with the sword. Jesus says, put down the sword. He who takes the sword shall perish by it. So there is a complete, absolute rejection of the option of violence. So there is that similarity between Hinduism and Christianity. But in both, the foremost symbols that urge people to renounce the path of violence have been used as exhortations to practice violence. What were crusades? Crusades were inspired by the cross as a symbol of violence to be practiced on those who are of a different faith. And as a Christian, I have no hesitation in saying that the crusades are a blot on Jesus Christ. And the abuse of the cross as a symbol of violence goes back to Constantine, the emperor of Rome, who used the cross as a war cry, as a symbol of martial domination. And in fact, the mortal corruption of Christianity started that day when Emperor Augustine had the vision that in the name of the cross of Jesus Christ, he could defeat his enemies and establish his kingdom of power. What a horrible, unthinkably horrible abuse of a religious symbol. This has happened all through history, and therefore it is necessary that we remain vigilant against such rank abuse of religious symbols. After all, people abuse religious symbols because they are hugely paying. Nothing yields greater dividends to a politician, to a power-seeking person than the abuse of religious symbols, for the reason I already stated, namely that religion is a domain of blind faith. So using religious symbols, you create the impression that you are the God-appointed defender of a religion, God-appointed defender of that God, and therefore people who repose their faith or think they repose their faith in God feel obliged to stand by you through thick and thin. That's the advantage. So Rahul Gandhi is quite right in saying that in this very process of projecting oneself as the champion of majoritarian communal self-assertion, those people are actually corrupting the very soul of Hinduism. And he therefore presents his idea of Hinduism. And I have to say this, that I did not know, frankly till the other day, I did not know that Rahul Gandhi was such a deep and perceptive reader of various religious traditions. I haven't heard a single political leader in India in the last half a century who has used the healthy religious ideas and central religious symbols in a complementary manner to present an argument as compelling, as powerful as Rahul Gandhi made the other day. And I have to give him credit for it, even as a theologian. And I was deeply touched and greatly encouraged by the assertion of the shared core of the spirituality of all religious traditions at a time when religions are pitted against each other and turned into warring factions. He says there is a substantial area of agreement in the spiritual core of these religious traditions, and particularly in respect of commitment to truth, justice, compassion, etc. And I think that is something that the people of India need to take note of. And unless and until this abuse of religion in order to justify and rationalize internecine quarrels within the home, a country divided against itself, as Abraham Lincoln said in the famous Gettysburg speech, a house divided against itself cannot stand. United we stand, divided we fall. So if religion is used as a tool for dividing India, for spreading alienation between religious communities, for disrupting the harmonious multi-religious fabric of Indian democracy, then it is not a service done to India. It's an abuse of the core of India, the idea of India, in a self-seeking pursuit of perpetuating oneself in the seat of power. And I have to agree with Rahul Gandhi there that it's an exercise fraught with serious consequences, and it is a disservice done to the country. And I do hope that the opposite camp that listened to him in an increasing state of discomfort or discomfiture would sooner or later pay heed to the valuable insights that he provided, even though unfortunately, he had to provide those insights couched in adversarial forms or as an antagonist. You see, when you speak something as an antagonist, then you also create a certain, you activate a psychology of defensiveness. And therefore, the people who listen to you from the opposite camp will not register the positive things that you say. Only the negative things that you say will be latched onto because they need to counter you. So the positives will be lost and only the negatives will survive. Anyway, a very interesting time. And as far as we are concerned, as citizens who belong to neither parties, we are only concerned about the political, spiritual, cultural insights, this very central event in the 18th Lok Sabha of India, as well as the continuing history of India's development towards becoming a mature democracy is concerned. And that is the reason why I thought it was justified to pay comparatively detailed attention to these two speeches. I'm quite conscious of the fact that I paid a disproportionate amount of, or I allocated a disproportionate amount of time to the speech of Rahul Gandhi, which is not altogether bad because there is a discrimination in the larger context to the in the opposite direction. The media in this country, the affluent sections, the corporate sector, everybody who matters, heavily favors a particular camp. Therefore, ordinary people like us will have to neutralize that bias by favoring the party that is in disfavor so that this inequality is compensated for and something like democratic equilibrium is restored and preserved. Anyway, opinions will vary on this, doesn't matter. When we say something in public, when we take a stand in the public domain, we should always be ready to face every kind of reaction. And therefore, I have no problem. My detractors from both camps are free to say what they want. I'm grateful to both of them. Ultimately, we belong together in this wonderful country called India. We, the people of India, that's what ultimately we are. You may belong to one camp. Someone else may belong to another camp. I'm happy to belong to neither. I belong to only one camp, the camp called humanity, and I'm happy to stay there, despised by both camps, because that's the only way I can safeguard my freedom to be of some use to you. And the sanity of this will become increasingly clear as you will proceed. So I conclude by thanking each one of you for the wonderful and sustained interest you've taken in this journey of decoding or sort of anatomizing the debates that we have witnessed. So, end of the day, may democracy in India be the victor. Jai Hind.